is 5 Live Sport.
Tuffers and Vaughan's Cricket Show.
Evening, welcome to Tuffers and Vaughan. Coming up, we'll look back at the T20 series in India. Went all the way to the decider, though I wonder, Michael, whether we have more questions than answers ahead of the World Cup later this year.
Yeah, I think the England team do have chappers. Started well, but I was disappointed. I don't think they adapted, and I thought India were brilliant at the end because they realised what England are going to do: bowl pace, hang on the back foot, cut and pull it, and they're going to smash it to all parts. That's exactly what they did.
In some ways, the highlight of the whole 5 games, Phil, was Chris Jordan's catch on Saturday.
That was a naughty catch, wasn't it? Running full pelt, jumped in mid-stride, stuck one hand out, caught it, then flicked it to his mate, and he did it like he was falling off a log. And I love Jason Roy's reaction, actually. He just laughed and went, "You can't be serious."
Jason Roy's reaction was absolutely brilliant. We'll look ahead to the one-day series. We'll hear why Owen Morgan says the motivation to continue as captain is still there. We'll also talk to Carlos Brathwaite as West Indies begin a new era without Jason Holder as captain.
Tuffers and Vaughan's Cricket Show
On 5 Live.
Your hair, Phil, starting to look as locked down as mine. You're quite long as well, aren't you?
It's getting ridiculous, and
Floppy
the
that,
Duchess
Phil,
has given it a little trim as well, but it hasn't come out great, actually.
Hey, just on that catch, chappers, I was just thinking I'd have taken that. That the Jason Roy catch, I'd have taken that one.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
That part of it, yeah.
And it is funny, though, but then you look in the book and it goes down to Jason Roy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, Colt Roy, that is amazing, you know what I mean? It was a fantastic catch, and it just amazes me when you think the boys in the field have sort of like gone as far as they can, you know, and catching it and flipping it over their head and throwing it back. That was just something to behold. It really, really was.
Yeah, I think Ugo Monya was on with me on Saturday afternoon when it happened, and he described it beautifully. It was like Chris Jordan was running the bend in a relay, actually, the way in a 4x1, the way he went round, and then just sort of tossed the bat on to Jason Roy.
Yeah, I think that there was sort of like, going back in the day, I think there was sort of like a Blackadder sketch or something when someone was walking round the boundary, you know what I mean, at some club cricket game, and he was sort of like reading a book or something, and they've gone sort of like, oi, Tuffers, like that. He's just sort of gone, bump, caught it, and not even looked, you know what I mean? And then just threw it on and carried on reading his book. It was like, it never happened. You had to watch it. And he just say, Jason Roy just fell about laughing. He just said, that is now just becoming unreal. It was brilliant to watch.
But actually, Roy's part in it, I know, Michael, that the catch is it's fairly
You're
easy
not going to say it was tough, are you?
No, I'm not going to say it's tough. But his position, I mean, he deserves credit for his positioning, actually.
Good spatial awareness.
They must be, the way they are drilled now will be, you know, if it's going and you see your teammate going for it, you have to, well, a bit like in rugby or in football, you're going to have to offer the option to your mate for that very situation.
Well, if hopefully this year we'll get crowds back in, and if you are going to a one-day T20 game, whether it's a county game, a Vitalis Pass, 100 game or an international game, get there an hour early and you will see the teams practice that catch. I'm not saying that they all do it as well as Chris Jordan, but all the fielding the Paul Collingwoods of this world, they'll be getting the bats out and they're smashing balls towards the boundary edge, and they're doing exactly that. But to do it in a game situation, Jason Roy sprinted around, and he's probably thinking, well, Chris Jordan will just catch that anyway. He'll grab that. Will I be required? Well, I better get close just in case. And even if it had been probably 20 yards away, Chris Jordan would have found a way to lob it even higher in the air to make sure Roy could kind of run around. Yeah, it's brilliant to see it. I mean, someone was asking me the other day, who's a better catcher than you've ever seen than Chris Jordan? I haven't seen many better catchers than Chris Jordan. No. I mean, there are some great ones around me. Paul Collingwood from England was obviously very good. Herschel Gibbs, John C. Rhodes, Viv Richards back in the day, Roger Harper. But Chris Jordan's right up there with the best.
Oh, yeah, without that. It just reminds me, but I mean, as you say, nowadays, they sort of like, they hunt in packs, don't they, in T20s? You say, someone goes for the catch and you give him, a bit like it's your footballs, you sort of like, you help him, you know what I mean? You're helping your mate
out. Aren't they, Phil? They go for the press.
They're pressing.
The low block.
It was always, I could always remember when we was fielding at the MCG, though, and someone would sort of like, not time one great, but you knew it was going to tease you all the way to the boundary, and sort of like the whole of of the cover ring sort of set off for it, you know what I mean? And you looked at each other going, who's the fastest one? Oh, can you go and get that? I'll be the relay. And we thought it was a par 3, the throwback, so you did have to go as a unit to go and field the ball almost.
But you
that's
imagine
what they're doing now. It's just, that comes natural.
Yeah, Phil, just go back 20, 30 years. Even, I was useless in the field. Imagine some of us trying that. I mean, for one, we'd get nowhere near. We'd be tripping up over the boundary rope, breaking our ankles on those kind of foam rollers. Yeah. Ball would certainly go for 6. There'd be a broken digit or two trying.
Hamstring. Someone would have pulled a hamstring. And as you say, if I was Jason Roy in those days, I would have just, as I would have seen that gone up, I would have been at sort of deep mid wicket or something like that. I would have just
watching.
Gone, I would have just gone, oh, thank God that ain't come to me.
But you are right though. If crowds are allowed back this summer, get there early to watch some of the fielding drills because they are brilliant. I went to a Lancashire Leicestershire T20 last year or the year before. And watching Glenn Maxwell go through his fielding drills on the boundary was in some ways it was better than the game actually.
I must mention, chappers, just quickly, Lancashire's signing today. That is a little bit of a moment for county cricket. Shreyas Iyer signed for Lancs for the 50 over Royal London Cup, the magnificent right-hander. You've just seen him playing the T20s. Yeah. Wonderful right-handed batsman. I like that sign that the Indians are coming to sign for a county. Hopefully we'll see a few more, potentially in the 100. Let's wait and see.
And they've done that to try and... I saw the quote from Paul Allott. They've done that because obviously... The Royal London Cup is going to be a lot of young players in that, and they wanted somebody a bit more experienced to try and lead those young players because that takes place during the 100.
Yeah, but I mean, as we saw in that Indian T20, Ishant Kishan and all these kind of guys just popping in and popping out and just setting the world alight. There's so many over in India that can just come in and sort of and fill the gaps of these sort of more established sort of like players, isn't there? I mean, I think in the next couple of years you're going to see a little bit of the old guard being put under pressure from India, and these sort of young Indians coming through. And so good.
Those young players,
they're
that good. I mean, they're exposed to the IPL in front of thousands in the ground, huge amount of profile, expectation, and they're brilliant. I just wonder whether a few more, because I know India are bringing 2 squads with the Test squad and an A squad to obviously have more of a squad in the UK. I wonder if a few more counties will be sniffing out some of the young English players.
Yadav just popped in, didn't he? Yadav just popped in, didn't he? Yadav popped in at 3 and just came out there, hit his first ball for 6, smashed 58 or something, didn't he? Why wouldn't you have him? Why wouldn't you have him as a county pro? Not even just for the one-day game. Getting involved in the county championship as well. I mean, they're just phenomenal. Some of these youngsters, phenomenal cricketers over in India at the moment.
Anyhow, we're 15 minutes into Tuffers and Vaughan. We appear to spend more time talking about the one-day cup than the actual England
we're just having
team
a chat
so far, which is quite... Yeah, we are. It's been a while. We haven't done one together for a little bit. It's lovely. What has worked in this 5-match T20 series, from an England point of view, Michael, what has worked?
I look at 2 things. I was against it when Jos Buttler went to the top because he offers so much in the middle, but... the more I watch T20 cricket now and you look at what Virat Kohli's done, he's gone to open the bat, and you have to give your best players as much of an opportunity to impact the game. And the best way to do that is to say you've got 120 balls, so you go out there first. So Buttler certainly is working at the top. It's a question mark of who goes out with him. Many options. Jason Roy looked okay, but I still don't think he's at his best. Obviously, Alex Hales has been mentioned. Johnny Bairstow could go back. You could move David Malan from 3, the way that he plays, to open the batting, and just say to David Malan, you anchor the innings and just play, and the rest can come out and just be firecrackers. We saw that when Virat Kohli opened for India. The rest could just go out and play. Rohit Sharma freed up, Yadav at number 3, Hardik Pandya got pushed up the order, and they just went for it because they knew they had that rock in Virat Kohli. So Buttler at the top of the order, but it leaves a massive hole in the middle. England had too many left-handers from 4 right down to 7. It was too easy for India, the likes of Shardul Thakur, to bowl those cutters wide of the crease. So England need to find a right-handed finisher. Whether Bairstow moves down to try and be that finisher, or Billings comes in, that means you go with one less bowler. I think the pace worked in Jofra Archer and Mark Wood. to an extent at the start, and that's why I said in the open that England became a bit too predictable, and India realised what England were going to do. They're going to bowl heavy into the pitch with pace, and they obviously went away and thought, well, we'll hang on the back foot and cut and pull it. And once you've got the pull shot, particularly from Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli in that last game, it was very difficult because they don't. I mean, Jofra has a magnificent array of skills. You know, he bowls slow balls, Yorkers, bouncers, slow ball bouncers. Mark Wood is just quick. You know, he hasn't got a go-to. I was surprised that they only used 12 players and they didn't turn to Moeen Ali. You know, I look at some of the figures. I've been studying them this afternoon, and you look at Sam Curran across the games. He bowled 10 overs only in the series. He got 3 for 78. Why wasn't he used more? And then I look at someone like Ben Stokes. He bowled 12 overs. He got 3 for 106. Why wasn't he used more? And then you look at someone like Chris Jordan, who played every game, 18.5 overs, and he was hit for 198. Now I'm looking at that, and up until, you know, even going into the third game, he'd bowled 10 overs for 100, so he was going at 10s in the first 3, but they kept with him. You know, you look at someone like Moeen Ali, who was, you know, left out, well, not left out, he was asked to stay, but didn't play in the last 2 test matches, and he hasn't played a T20 game across the 5 matches. You know, when you're getting hit, you know, and those numbers say, I don't think they've used Sam Curran and Ben Stokes enough. If they did, I don't think you need Chris Jordan. You could have put Moeen Ali in for Chris Jordan.
Yeah. Also, the other thing I think in that last, I mean, you touched on it there, Mike. That opening spell, it had worked, hadn't it? But you said India then sort of knew what was coming, and I think England were a little bit slow to kind of change up their game plans, weren't they? A little bit. I think they weren't very clever in that sort of first power play in that last game. They just said, "Well, this is the way we." They were a little bit one-dimensional, if anything. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but in that first initial sort of power play in the last game, it was as if India knew exactly what they were going to do, and England didn't then react quick enough. And then by the time it had gone a bit, and they were 60 or 70 off the power play, and the kind of the game was set up by India. So little bits of things to think about. I think, if anything, India I think they started off. You know, a little bit sort of scrabbling around a little bit, not quite knowing what their best team is or, you know, how to move forward. And England was sort of in a position of, no, we know where we are, we're a more settled side. But if anything, I think by the end of that 5-game series, it kind of reversed round a little bit, you know what I mean? And India almost taken more from that series than England did, and sort of progressed along to the World Cup, you know, to the T20 World Cup. Yeah,
my concern was that they went in with this tactic of bowling heavy length, and particularly to some of the Indian players, and the data information tells you that they strike less if you bowl around chest high at a decent pace. So if you get the ball going through straight around the chest high, the Indian players have a lesser strike rate. Someone like Hardik Pandya strikes at just under 200 if you pitch it up, so you go a bit shorter, and he, I think, strikes at about 130. I mean, it's still a lot, but it's not as much as if you do when you pitch it up. Now, with all this data, which is great, you know, bring it on board, but you know, you've got to remember that the opposition have the same data.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they'll see the same data, and if you're going with one plan. So I look at someone like Bhubaneswar Kumar, he bowls 80 miles an hour, but what does he do? He watches the batsman and he bowls the ball which the batsman least wants. So if you give yourself a bit of space to someone like Bhubaneswar Kumar, what does he do? He throws it out wide. So you have to really reach to fetch it. You know, to someone like Jason Roy, what did he do? He just brought it back in because he knows Jason Roy wants a bit of width. You know, he watches the feet. If someone dances down to him, he fires it into the boot. You know, and that's an instinctive bowler. As much as he'll have all the information and all the data of where potentially you bowl to all these players that he's bowling to, right at the last minute he goes, oh no, that's not there. But I tell you what, he's giving himself a bit, I'm going to have to throw it out wide just to make it more difficult. I just thought England weren't quite as savvy. I didn't think they were quite instinctive enough when they bowled, particularly in those last 2 games.
They forgot their gut feel, didn't they, a little bit?
We can expand on all of this in just a moment, but let's hear from the England captain. Eoin Morgan's been talking to Jonathan Agnew.
4 out of the 5 games that we played, our power play bowling was exceptional, and it's been an area of concern probably for the last 2 years. That was brilliant coming out of it, and certainly things that we need to stay on top of that weren't as sharp as we would have liked are the last 4 or 5 overs with the bat and the ball. I felt as if our middle order didn't really fire at all throughout the 5 games. 2 ways of looking at that is the games that we won, our top order really did fire, and our middle order weren't needed. And then when they were needed, it was in crucial moments. But that is the role of the middle order, and it just goes to show you can't take areas for granted at given stages. And then our bowling needs to be sharper against the better sides in the world. So yeah, those are the learnings from our series. Although we didn't win it, there's plenty to learn from it.
Given the context of it and the fact that some people have been away a long time now, I mean, is there any challenge at all in not appearing like sort of the end of the road, if you like, and home just round the corner? You've got to keep people focused.
Yeah, I think given the context of the format and the position, given we're so far out from the World Cup, it's going to present opportunities for guys that haven't necessarily played yet and been away from home. Obviously, travelling and not playing is extremely difficult. Motivation towards when an opportunity might present itself can be difficult when you're on tour. So Chris Wokes and Joe Root, both at home resting at the moment, who are our mainstays within our ODI team. So there are two positions that will present themselves for guys.
Where are you with 50 overs at the moment, Owen? I mean, you're obviously the captain, but by you, I mean England, really. Are you at sort of early planning stages, mid planning stages? I mean, how do you see the context of your 50 overs game at the moment?
I think given that our white ball teams are extremely skilled and building on the back of our World Cup win in 2019 still, it's important for us to continually drive that forward, because I think if we neglect it or rest on our laurels moving forward, it becomes a bigger challenge then to upskill for a World Cup. So given the two formats are extremely close in regards to skills that you need to produce at given times during a 50 over game or a T20 game, we always have very similarly placed squads. So the transition from one to the other should be seamless, but obviously re-engaging with the skills that we need for 50 over cricket are important.
And you yourself, obviously T20 captain, and another white ball 50 overs World Cup, well, not quite around the corner, but a couple of years away. I mean, have you got any thoughts about that at all? Your own motivation, your own desire for that, your own hunger to lead England on again in the 50 over format?
Yeah, here the motivation is certainly there at the moment. And at the front of my mind are the two T20 World Cups. Obviously, the planning around the 50 over is still there and continuously moving forward. And obviously, I'm a big part of that. But the focus is T20 cricket. You know, my motivation moving forward is still to be one of the best players in the side and hopefully to lead the side as best as I can. So it's definitely there.
So in many ways, from listening to that, Phil, the ODIs that are coming up are still an opportunity for players to get into the T20 World Cup squad. This even though it's 50 overs, they're still looking at players here for possibly the World Cup squad.
Well, as you say, two T20 World Cups coming up. Yeah, so someone like a Moeen Ali has got to play in this ODI series, hasn't he? Surely he's got to, just to have a look to see what he can do, what he can bring to the party as well, and what his kind of forms in a little bit. A few things that just interested me there about that was sort of like, he said that the bowling's got to be sharper. I think what it meant was what we were saying earlier, a bit sharper in mind. You know what I mean? I think that they were just a little bit, and we've banged on about all the analysts and everything. I think they got a little bit too far down that route with the bowling, and I think they've got to be a little bit sharper and a little bit more aware of the situation and be confident in themselves, that, okay, as Michael was saying, he knows I'm going to be bowling it there, and even though that's his weakness, sometimes you've got to have a double bluff and you've got to then try something yourself. I think they just got a little bit one-dimensional, the bowling unit there, and didn't quite have enough, I don't know, belief in themselves, perhaps, just to try and turn it around off their own back, you know what I mean, and be supported with that. And the other thing is about, as you say, he was talking about you've got to keep driving it forward, haven't you? You've got to keep driving it forward. The T20 game is evolving with every game of cricket you play. England will always be a T20 side and a one-day side that can win any game of cricket that they turn up for, with any squad that they pick or any 11 that they pick, because we've got some very, very good players. But you've got to keep that driving forward, that people aren't just sort of like settled in their spots here as being a quality white ball cricketer. You've got to keep people pushing them up their backside to keep them performing. Otherwise, you do just then sort of start thinking about it as in, well, hold on a minute, what did the analyst tell me to do? Well, I did that and it didn't work, so not to worry, I'm still a great player. You've got to keep that driving forward.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I fear for them in this series, these 350 over games, because no Jofra Archer. He's been in fine form. He's got that problem with his elbow. That needs resting. Joe Root, the best player is spin in the longer format and the 50 over format. No Joe Root. David Milan's not in the initial squad. He's still there, but
he's a reserve, isn't he?
So he's not going to be playing. He's been in fine form. So you actually look at the batting lineup. You go, Jason Roy's looked okay. Johnny Bairstow hasn't done a great deal, but he's looked okay. And then you've got someone who will come in at number 3. I personally would put Ben Stokes at number 3.
Yeah, me too.
And get him up the top of the order.
Yeah.
Then you'll probably see someone maybe like Liam Livingstone play, and the captain himself. I just go back to the T20s. I don't think Morgan uses himself enough with the bat. I think he's a brilliant white ball player that can manoeuvre the ball 360, and he almost seems to me like he's allowing others to go out there before him. So he's got to remind himself how good a player he is, because he can really change the course of any white ball game.
There's no, and just picking up on that then, because it then goes back to talking about the T20 batting lineup as well. And I've heard so many discussions, I've read so many articles, and so many debates on it. There's not a perfect solution, is there? Because we're talking about Morgan and the opportunities for him. We're talking about Stokes, the opportunities for him. We're talking about Butler and the opportunities for him, for them all to try and face the maximum number of balls they possibly can. And yet, within all of that is the highest-ranked T20 batsman in the world, in David Milan. Yeah. And somebody somewhere is not going to face the number of balls that ideally you would like them to face to hit a big score.
Yeah, well, that is the nature of T20, isn't it? It's very difficult to become a consistent T20 side, because it's just the nature of the format sort of lends itself to inconsistency. But what England has, as I said earlier, have got a side that whenever it walks out in a white ball game can compete with the highest. It's as simple as that, but you've got to keep on your toes. And that last game, when Butler and Milan got England, they were chasing 220 or 230, which is, a massive score. And you didn't expect, England to win there. But then from then, those two playing such a great innings and then getting us to a position where you could then strike out and perhaps get a great score, it just completely fell apart, didn't it? I mean, I think they lost, they lost 6 wickets for 20 runs, and it was just
admit, Phil, I find it. I don't know. With David Milan, I've heard a number of reports saying, "Oh, can he be in the team?" I'm going, this is the number 1 T20 player in the world that averages over 50 with a strike rate of 145. Maybe look elsewhere. Because he's actually doing his role, and just because he might not be in sync in terms of trend, because he wasn't a part of that, World Cup winning team. Sometimes you've got to be careful that you're not too loyal. Yeah. When a player like David Milan comes along, realise what a great job he's doing for the team and how he's adding to the team. Someone like Jason Roy at the top of the, he's a wonderful player, but sometimes you need to be taken out just to give yourself a little bit of wait a minute, I'm not an absolute shoo-in to play in every single game. David Milan could open in T20 cricket. It's not a great difference, is it, from batting at 3 to go to 2 and just say, right, he's going to be the anchor. And this is the issue sometimes. Like India will have the same issue. They've got too many players and they've got too many kind of options available. And England, over the course of the next few months in T20 cricket, will have to find a way. And that's why, it does surprise me that the way that they've played 50 over cricket, over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, has been with Joe Root at number 3, and he's like the anchor. I'm surprised they haven't gone with an anchor like a David Milan in this series, just to give them that same foundation and formation. And I personally look at it and go, well, Ben Stokes, could he be that anchor in the next 350 overs? No David Milan, no Joe Root. Ben Stokes needs a bit of time in the middle. Could he do that role at number 3? And then it allows the Billingses and Owen Morgans to come and be the finishers, and Moeen Ali. He has to play. He can't miss these next 350 over games. He has to be playing. And England need 2 spin options, in my opinion, in Indian conditions, even in the T20s. All right, the ball went through, but I still felt they needed another spin option. India always have 2, if not 3. Even in a Ahmedabad ground, which is just going through quite nicely, they always have 2 or 3 spin options. England only had 1 because there's no Joe Root in the T20 team now, just to offer a couple of overs.
Let's just stay on Moeen Ali, because Virat was asked about him today in his press conference. Obviously, they know each other from their time at RCB in the IPL together. This is what Kohli made of Moeen's situation.
He would have been a very strong addition for sure in the test matches, looking at how the pitch assisted the spinners, and also in the T20 competition with him bringing in a bit more balance and adding an extra spinning option. But outside of that, I honestly have no idea what the internal conversations were, and to be honest, it's not something for me to review or worry about at all.
You sometimes wonder, Michael, when people are asked about opposition players, whether they start playing mind games or not, or try to wind the opposition up. His second part, he's suggesting he isn't. And actually, his first line, he's probably just being honest, isn't he, when he said he would have been a very strong addition?
Yeah, Moeen Ali must be an incredible mixer of drinks, because that's pretty much what he stayed on tour for. He went home and missed the test matches, and now he's been there for 5 T20s and not played one game. He offers so. That's why I read out all those bowling figures earlier, because you can do without a Chris Jordan, because you've got Sam Curran and Ben Stokes who actually have not been utilised enough, and then you bring Moeen Ali in for a couple of overs and maybe a 4 on a given day, and you get Moeen Ali's batting, and he's a quality fielder as well. So I didn't quite get why Moeen didn't play at least 2 or 3 of those T20s. He must play the 50 overs, Phil.
Yeah, but you are right as well, Moeen. Another left-hander in that middle order. England have got to try and break that up. I think there was 3 or 4 left-handers coming in that middle order, and it becomes so easy, as you say, for just a person who loves to bowl against left-handers, bowl it wide of off stump with those little cutters. And that's why England in that middle order just completely ground to a halt, because there was just no way that they could get after that Thakur, because
but it was just crying out.
Pitch.
Phil, it was crying out. I mean, you hear the expression
Alex
matchups. Matchups. There's many players, but even for the 11 that was picked, England could have just broken it up by throwing a Chris Jordan or a Jofra Archer out there just to get a right-hander out there to try and strike those cutters. They were just a little bit predictable, England, in those last 3 games. And if you're predictable against quality, they'll find you out.
Yeah, I like the shout of Liam Livingstone as well. I think that perhaps it would be nice just to see a few little people popped in and popped out. I know that everyone says
little people.
What do you mean, little people? A few little people.
There's some garden gnomes playing.
What?
Sorry, that's just a way.
Sorry,
Lord
Tufnell.
No, it would be good just to throw in a few different kind of youngsters, just to keep everyone. You know what I'm saying. My wife says that when she's annoyed with me. You know what I mean? She goes, "Yes, go on, read your little email." You know what I mean? Well, it's not a little email. It's not a little email.
Is that what she was saying to you today, Phil, when she sent you into the shed?
Oh no! Oh well! I was angry today. I've got to skip today, chappers, right? And I'm throwing everything out. And I've gone into the shed and I've found my first England sweater. I know, and it was one of the old ones with the crown, and it was embossed in wire and everything. It's a beauty, but it was a bit smelly and a bit sort of, it'd been in there for about 30 years. But I was really happy with it. I've come in and said to the Duchess, "Oh, Dawny, can you just wash it and freshen it up a little bit?" Well, you know what's happened.
No, she hasn't.
Oh, it's about that big.
Oh, no. Well, it's going to fit a little person.
It's going to fit a little person.
Give it Liam Livingstone to go out and bat it. There you go. It'll be all right. Was it a home jumper or one of the?
Oh, it was the home one with the crown
the
crown and the things. I was a little bit upset, but as you say, so it's a little jumper. I must have been. But
back
no,
to
I
Liam Livingstone. And it's great. It will be great. I mean, with my Lancastrian head on, it'd be great to see Liam Livingstone get an opportunity and so on and so forth. But whatever they do, they aren't going to break into the T20 batting lineup for the World Cup, are they? Are they?
No, but I just like the way that India threw in a couple of those youngsters, didn't they? KL Rahul, he didn't get any, did he, early on? But, I mean, he was sort of like nailed on. But they just said, no, right, let's have a look at someone else. Put that Ishant Kishant in. Put that Yadav in as well, you know what I mean? And just said, we're gonna rest Rohit Sharma. We're going to just have a look at these other people. I think that you continually need to be moving forward and freshening up, even if you then go back to your old stages, so to speak.
Yeah, I think, if you go Liam Livingstone and Sam Billings in that middle order for the 350 overs, and you're basically saying, by the way, you're in that middle order to finish the game off or to finish an innings off. Yeah. Sam Billings got that tremendous 100 last year. Yeah. Against the Aussies, and you're kind of looking at Sam Billings as the one with more of a chance because he's played a bit more. But if Liam Livingstone does a great job, why not? They need a right-handed finisher in that middle order in the T20 World Cup, in my opinion. If one of those two comes out and strikes it great in these 3 matches, in Indian conditions, the World Cup's going to be in India. Absolutely, I do think that. I think sometimes you can be, I said before, you can be too loyal. Sometimes a player or a situation arrives and you go, you've got to go with this. Like India have gone with Surya Kumar Yadav at number 3. That's why Virat batted at 4, because he played so well on his debut. And then he realised, Virat Kohli, wait a minute, I actually went out to bat in that game and there was only 70-odd deliveries left by the time I'd got out there, and he had to dance down to Adil Rashid. He got stumped. The best way for Virat Kohli to impact the game is to go out there first and try and face as many of those 120 balls.
I would imagine reputation against form and loyalty is even harder when it's a World Cup winning squad. Admittedly not in a T20, but you take my point. A World Cup winning squad that might have to be slowly broken up a little bit.
Of course. It's the way of the world, and it has always been that way. It really has. You can't just keep churning along in that same old rut. You've sometimes got to look at... But, England have had fantastic preparation. This 60-over thing, as Owen Morgan alluded to there, what a perfect way of having a look at some fresh new guys, perhaps putting Stokes up at 3, to play in these kind of conditions and use it as a fantastic T20 sort of practice, if you know what I mean.
Well, you'd want, Chappers, England would hope Jason Roy finds form. Because you'd want to arrive in a World Cup with all your experience of players that have been in World Cup finals and delivered. But, they shouldn't be scared. If a player isn't playing well enough and there's a younger player or a fresher player that has suddenly come out of the traps and done incredibly well, they shouldn't be scared of making that change, because you're basically trying to say to you, right, how do we pick our best 11? It's not going to be easy because there's so many players. There's probably 22 players that could play white ball cricket for England, so it's not going to be easy, but they also shouldn't be scared of ruffling a feather or two if it's what's required for the team.
Final one on Moeen Ali here. Morgan also said he's come back refreshed with plenty of energy. He's a very relaxed guy who always has a reasonable perspective on life and sport and the role that it plays within society. He's travelling really well. Is he taken for granted because he doesn't rock the boat?
Maybe. No disrespect, Chav. I'd have loads of energy if I'd only played one Test match in 2.5 months. He should be playing. He offers so much.
And it's not down to the individual, Mike. It's not down to the individual to rock the boat. You can't be sitting there going like, Broady, I should be playing and everything. It's not in some people's character, is it? That is then up to the hierarchy and the captain and what have you to then say, well, hold on a minute, this guy needs to play.
Yeah,
it's not rocking the boat, I don't think.
No, Virat was very kind about Moeen Ali, but let's be honest, when Moeen Ali was at the RCB in the IPL, Virat didn't use him all the time. He was his captain. So Moeen's been left out of other sides other than England sides. He's been left out of IPL teams. He's gone to the Chennai Super Kings now, and I'm sure he'll get used a lot more. But I just look at the all-round cricketer that Moeen is. I'd want him in my team. I really would. I just think, I don't think he's ever had a settled role as a batter in the team. He's always been manoeuvring around. I think he's got so much to offer with the bat. With the ball, he generally always gets wickets. He seems to have that knack of getting wickets, and he's very dependable in the field. So I would want that three-dimensional cricketer in my white ball team.
Yeah, and you never quite know. But I know what you mean. You never quite know what Moeen's thinking. So I do sort of understand what you're saying, Chappers. It's always someone else speaking for Moeen, isn't it? It's someone else sort of saying, well, listen, he knows this and he knows this and we all think he's this and we all think he's that. It would be nice actually to know what Mo's thinking about what he wants to do and where he wants to go and how he sees himself moving forward as an England player. He hasn't really come out and said that, has he?
No. Carlos Brathwaite joins us.
I can
now.
see his cat.
Hey, there's
it's not a cat. It's not a cat.
That's a cat.
It's a dog.
I can't see it.
Japanese
it's a fox.
Shiba
That's not
Inu.
a dog. That's a fox.
It's a fox.
So what kind of dog is that? Because it does bear a striking resemblance to a fox.
Japanese Shiba Inu. Nala's had enough. She's gone.
Right.
Ready to go? Yeah.
He looks handsome.
Vaughnie. Not your best introduction, Vonnie.
Don't blame me. The fox has disappeared. He's gone for his night shift.
She has taken great offence at your comments, Michael, and I do not blame her. Carlos, apologise to her on behalf of the BBC for Michael's comments, please. Thank you.
It's a lovely fox.
How much of England India have you been watching, and if you managed to watch a fair bit of it, what have you made of that T20 series?
Yeah, a bit. But I mean, totally better T20 and white ball teams, and rightly so. They exhibited the class on the field where it ended 3-2, and they had a decider. That's what you're looking for, really. In the lead up to white ball World Cups, you're looking for challenging series to really test your mettle. And when it comes down to a series decider, that gives you your knockout feel for a World Cup. You don't want it going into the last game 3-1 or 4-0 and nothing to play for. So I think they would have done justice to both teams.
Carlos, you'd have studied both sides. I mean, you mentioned how good the combination of India and England are. They'll be up there with the favourites, if not the favourites, for the T20 World Cup. What, in particular, England? What did you notice that you would change? You're around all these franchise leagues. You played a load of T20 cricket. If you were in charge of England, what would you change in the team?
Not so much change, but I think what England have been really good with is persisting. I think Milan is anomaly. You have someone who's so good but doesn't necessarily fit the way that England play. So how do England get the best out of Milan, and how does he complement Damian Lillard? Because I think he has a lot to give, especially in potentially slow, low tracks. It may not be his forte, but all T20 teams or good T20 teams have that one player that can get you 50 or 60 or 40 balls while the guys around him be very dynamic. And I think Milan is that man. He's your banker. So you need him, but it's how do you get the best out of him and still allow your Stokes, your Morgans, etc. to go on and play their knocks around him.
Would you leave Milan at 3?
Pardon?
Would you be tempted to lob David Milan up to open the batting, just to say, right, you're our rock at the top and everyone else can go around you?
But what a good problem England have, because you have 6 guys who can open the batting and all get you 100. So you just need to decide who will open the batting. I think he's good at 3, because if he comes in early enough, I mean, he uses up some of the power play and not as dynamic as some of the other guys. Or do you be as flexible as possible and say, look, if we lose a wicket in the first 6, you don't go at 3. If you lose a wicket after the first 6, you go next. That type of thing. You need to be flexible in T20 cricket, and that's a potential option because there are players who can give you more in the first 6. However, the balls that he uses up in the first 6 allows him to capitalise in the back end and get it at 60 or 70 or 40 balls, and as he did in New Zealand, get you 100. So again, it's about finding that perfect balance between using Milan and not allowing his skill set to hamper the rest of the dynamic players.
You must have been impressed with some of the Indian youngsters, Carlos. I mean, and that side, Jasprit Bumrah's got to come back into that side, hasn't it? Jadeja's got to come back into that side. They are just full of talent, aren't they?
The IPL has been so good for Indian cricket, man. Obviously, you had your Tendulkars, your Dravids, etc., who were masters of their craft. But when you look at the revolving door players that India have had, think to Australia, how many players they missed, how many players they would have gone through, and they still come up trumps fighting back. Every time they would put a hurdle in front of them, they got over it. And then in white ball cricket, you think about these guys rubbing shoulders. Ishan Kishan would have rubbed shoulders with Kieron Pollard, who was a mental giant. And the way he came out there and played, I know it's not only the Indian in him. There's a bit of West Indian flair there. You think about Surya Kumar Yadav rubbing shoulders with Russell, with Narayan, with, I guess, Owen Morgan in the past. And being a part of that Mumbai setup, the IPL has been massive, man. They feel as though they're playing international cricket whilst they're playing the domestic league.
Yeah.
Where are the West Indies white ball side at then at the moment, in your opinion? But mainly T20s, but you know they've just beaten Sri Lanka 3-0 in the ODIs as well. Where are they at as a white ball team?
As a white ball team, I think they're trying to find our perfect formula. We have a good blend of old heads, and youngsters. And it's about getting that mix right. Personally, it was real good for me to see Fidel Edwards back at 39. You know, sometimes you say age is an obstacle, but they got a few guys around the world that showing age is just a number. And I just played CPL with him, and he was bowling rocket. So to see that form rewarded with a call-up was real pleasing for me. And then it's just about finding that right balance. How do we get the young, exciting players and then the old heads to give the calming influence to get them positive results?
You mentioned age, Carlos. Universe boss Chris Gale, he was back. Will we see him in the T20 World Cup?
Chris has just turned 29, Vaughan. Yeah, he works real hard, man. I mean, you see a lot of Chris partying. That's the persona he likes to put out there. But when you think about a guy that thinks about the game, understands what he needs to do to be successful, you can look at his tests and ODI stats to see he's not just a flash in the pan, and he works real hard on his fitness. So I hope he can do it. I mean, it's just one of those stories where I think everyone has the perfect send-off in their mind. Chris Gale playing another World Cup, winning it for the West Indies, and being able to sign off as he wants, when he wants. His career deserves it, and he hopes he get that chance, and West Indies can lift the trophy and give him that send-off he deserves.
It'd be a good story, wouldn't it? It'd be a good story. I don't know where he's going to field, though. Where's he going to field?
Short third. Always a single to short third.
I mean, he's 41. Dwayne Bravo's 37. Fidel Edwards, who you mentioned, is 39. Why is the experience so vital, do you think, in this West Indies side, Carlos? And why has Fidel Edwards decided to make a return to international cricket?
I can't tell you why Fidel has decided to make a return, but I know, having been out of the team, he got an opportunity to play Kolpak cricket in England, did well, continued to earn contracts. And I guess it's a situation where you look at your career, you look at your life, and you see, how's my body doing, how's my mind doing, skill set. And off the basis of CPL, he was in fantastic nick. He went to T10 and backed it up again. And I guess you always want to play for your country. So if I'm at 39 and your body feels good and you're rearing to go, then why not try to get back into a national team, especially with the World Cup around the corner?
Yeah, and chappers, I was saying it earlier in the show about, you know, your instincts taking over when you're going to play the game. So when you bowl, and you look at Dwayne Bravo, he's played so many years of T20 cricket. So he comes up against a young batter, and that young batter have all the shots and all the flair. Dwayne Bravo will outthink him because he's seen everything. He has not seen anything on the game of cricket. So you look at Chris Gale, he's seen every action, every slower ball. He's played on every surface. And he'll just back himself. And a young quick bowler charged in. You know, many years ago, so T20 cricket is purely for the younger players. You know, yes, in terms of running around the field and doing what someone like Chris Jordan did the other night with the catch, but I tell you what, give me someone that's played a lot who can just see the game before it's been delivered, and that's exactly what Chris Gale can do.
Yeah. Carlos, does someone like Chris Gale sort of go to the analyst all the time, or Fidel Edwards go to the analyst all the time, or are they are just doing it on feel, aren't they?
I'm not sure if Chris is much of an analyst guy.
I think I know what he analyses.
Chris is a bit more old school. But a couple of things out of what you said there, Vaughan. My first game as skipper, T20, playing with Bravo, we got 240, something like that, 241 or something like that. Should have been a walk in the park. But we fast forward to 19.5 overs in the Indian innings, and they need 2 runs to win, or 3 runs to win, 1 ball, something like that, something crazy. And Dhoni's at the other end. And I walked to Bravo. I would never tell Bravo what to bowl. So I just asked, what will you bowl? And he said, yep, slow ball, wide. And in my mind, like, that makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. Just bowl a Yorker. Let him dig it out to short mid-wicket. I run from short extra cover, collect it, run out, game 1. I say, you sure? He said, yeah, positive. Cool. Walk back to short extra cover, knowing that an hour or so ago I would have had a win in my first game as captain and not really sure what will happen after this ball. Slow ball, wide, Dhoni slogs it, top edges, caught short third man. And there's exactly what you just said. Like, you see the game, And not only you see it and know what to do, but you know what to execute and how to execute it. And that's a perfect example of what experience brings over naivety.
Yeah,
that's good captaincy as well, though. That isn't it? That Carlos, that is good captaincy.
I hope so. Just do nothing.
What would you have said to him?
6 years.
Carlos, what would you have said to him if Donny had come down the wicket and smashed it straight out the park for 6?
Tough luck. I'd be banging.
There you go. Tough luck. You've got to. You've got to in those situations. You've got to go with your gut feel. You've got to go with your experience and your feeling, haven't you? You know, you can't be always thinking about methods and matchups and this and how to bowl at this person and where his weak area is. Sometimes you just got to go, I tell you something, I'm all in. Come on, let's go all in.
Speaking of the captaincy, Carlos, what do you make of what has gone on with the Test side and Jason Holder losing the captaincy, which for all of us who watched the West Indies over here last summer in very difficult circumstances and how he conducted himself, he was an outstanding captain last summer. I think that, well, it surprised a lot of us here. What do you make of it?
I think it was a little surprising to people in the West Indies as well. As much as the board said the persons that didn't go Bangladesh wouldn't be vilified for their decision.
Because he didn't go to Bangladesh, did he?
He didn't go.
Him and 10 others didn't go for COVID reasons.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's for COVID reasons, so I'm not speaking for them.
Oh, right,
but I've been in 4 or 5 different bubbles, and I can tell you that is one of the hardest things a human being will have to go through. But on to the decision to captain, I just felt the public, really felt as though these guys went as like a B team, and they came back from one of the toughest trips, and they're now heroes. And you had a sense around those guys getting extra leeway as such to carry on their careers and not have their careers stunted by the quote-unquote A team. But I messaged Jace, and I obviously got the captaincy taken away, so I know how despondent you can be. But for me, it was just about celebrating his tenure as captain, because you think of a young man coming into a tough situation, leading the Test side, not even having established himself in the Test team, and to get us from where we were then, with not many people wanting to play Test cricket and not many people around the world believing that we can actually last 5 days, to us coming toe-to-toe against some teams and, actually putting up a fight, putting in some decent performances. We beat England at home, which raised the mood of cricket throughout the region. We fought well last summer up until we got to Manchester and the cold took over. So more so than, debating on if it's the right decision or the wrong one, I think it's a real good opportunity to just celebrate Jason's leadership and where he's taken the team up until now. And for Craig, again, more celebration. Craig actually lost the Test vice captaincy a couple series ago and lost his contract as well. So within the space of 12 months, you not only regained the leadership of vice captaincy, but you're now head honcho, you are the Test captain, and you would have led your troops to Pakistan, which is a difficult place, with a quote-unquote second string team, and you brought home the bacon. So I think there's a time for celebration in West Indies cricket, more so than debate.
But Carlos, Jason Holder is one of the great men of the game. The way that he's led the team, and they've moved on. But I guess you look at someone like Jason Holder, his first Test match as not the captain, and he delivers 5 for 27.
Yeah.
So he's just got on with his job. So he won't be the kind of character that will cause any kind of fuss. He'll get on with his job. He's got the 5 for, and the West Indies are on top. Raheem called it. Well, last time I looked, he was 16 out, the big fella. But that is Jason Holder all over. He'll just get back into the team and just do his job.
Yeah, and Jason would have played under Craig a few games, probably every season for the Barbados Pride, which is the Barbados regional franchise. They're very good mates. They would have played West Indies on 19 together. Can't remember who was captain back then, either Jace or Craig. But throughout their careers, they would have alternated, one being captain, the other being senior player and star performer. They've always performed and outperformed everyone at age group level. Jace came to England as number 1 all around in the world. I mean, as I say, it's time for celebration. You don't have you wouldn't see Jace trying to stunt Craig's growth as a captain. He'd be a bigger clown now in the dressing room than he was when he was captain. And I saw him batting at 6 in this game, and that may even free up his personal game without the stresses of having to, think about the game in that level of detail and make decisions on the spot. He can now bat at 6, bowlers overs, feel at slit, be a nuisance to everyone else in the dressing room, telling corny jokes and making a lot of noise, and just get on with it. And at the end of the day, once West Indies cricket win, everyone is happy. So I'm sure that if we win this first test, no one will remember who the captain was.
That's a brilliantly positive way to end our chat, Carlos, particularly when it starts on such a rude, negative way from Michael. So,
Where's the fox? Where's the fox gone?
She's sleeping. She's biting her paws. So yeah, she'll be good. She'll get over it.
Great to see you. Great to have you on, Carlos. See you soon. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Take care,
Top
guys.
man. Thank you.
Cheers,
Carlos
mate.
Brathwaite on Tuffers and Vaughan. We've got a couple of minutes, so
It did
let's
look
just...
like a fox, though, didn't it, Chappers?
Well, it did a little bit. Yeah.
Don't tell him he's gone now.
When he first
It's
came on the
pretty.
Zoom call and she just appeared, I did take a second glance just to check him. Yeah. Anyhow, so we've got a couple of minutes just to have a final thought on the one-day series and what you would like to see England get out of it. Not necessarily whether they win it or not, and I know you think they'll lose it 3-0, Michael, but what you'd like to see them get out of it.
I think consistency with the bat. I do think it's going to be difficult for the bowlers to bowl at that formidable batting lineup of India. Jofra Archer, he's not playing. I don't think we'll see Mark Wood in every game. He'll probably play 1 or 2. Need to see Moeen Ali, so I want to see a bit from Moeen Ali. But I just want to see 1 or 2 big hundreds. The pitches should be pretty good. You should be able to get in and get score. I mean, 325 generally is about par in India. So I'm looking for consistency with the bat, and I'm looking forward to seeing what combinations they come up with, and particularly someone like a Liam Livingstone or Sam Billings, where they play. Can they be those finishers in the middle of the innings? Because I do feel in white ball cricket that is the one area that England can get better at, is finishing off innings and being powerful at the end, and a great opportunity for those players.
Yeah, great opportunity for a few guys to come in and just ruffle, shake a few things up, ruffle a few feathers.
Okay, great opportunity for the little people.
You know I didn't mean that. They're called the borrowers.
Great opportunity for the borrowers. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you, Michael. See you both soon.
Tuffers and Vaughan's Cricket Show
On 5 Live.